Yo, what's up guys? Terrell here from Terrell Game Vlogs, or if you may just be watching it, hey, what's up? How you doing? Hope you're having a good day. This video is going to be somewhat depressing, so prepare yourself! Or it's fucking stupid. Anyways, so I didn't plan for this to be my first societal discussion, and in a way it still kind of isn't, but something kind of triggered it. A YouTuber, an anime reaction slash review channel I watch called Lunar Spiral 11127 recently put up an update video that kind of hit a little close to home for me personally about how she was having kind of a rough time dealing with some personal stuff. And I thought that this video, if nothing else, could create maybe a cool dialogue chamber of a way of having some conversations with people that may share similar issues or may have had similar issues that could kind of give better advice than I can. Once again, these videos are never meant me saying that this is the end all be all. This is just how I go about discussing the topic. And the topic of today's video, if you couldn't tell by the title, was depression. So as I said, it's going to be fun times. Okay, so this hits pretty close to home for me because of I dealt with my own brand of depression. And it kind of gets into depression in itself. Depression is like one of the most annoying things to deal with because it's something that inherently comes from your personality over analyzing shit. I've learned that, at least for in my case, I can't speak for anyone else. For me personally, a lot of my depression came from me looking at a situation and going and kind of running it in my head like 1,000 times over, thinking, why did this happen? What caused this? And usually what ends up happening is that before you even start running that train of thought, you're already blaming yourself. Because that's what it boils down to. A lot of depression is a lot of self-hatred. Self-hatred or your insecurities really cropping up and destroying you from the inside because you think you're the cause of why everything isn't going well. It also kind of shows the mark of a pretty caring and empathetic person because you tend to blame yourself for others' misfortunes, and you do this because you think if they weren't around me, then they wouldn't have been in this situation. I think Lunar Spiral in her video kind of alludes to that in her video. I'm going to use my own personal experience to give you an example of what I mean. And I may have told the story before, so I apologize to those who heard it before, but for those who haven't, here's a little story time with Terrell. So when I was little, our family situation was pretty rough. I would say up until I was probably about 14 going into high school, we were constantly moving. We constantly didn't have enough money to support wherever we were living. And we only lived in like one place at a time for maybe the longest was a year. So I was constantly moving as a kid. And a lot of my insecurities came from the fact that, well, we didn't have any fucking money. Like I've lived in everything from like a normal house, hell, a 3-story house, in fact, to a fucking trailer out there in the sticks. Like I wouldn't say I've been to the absolute worst, but I wouldn't say I haven't been that far away from it. I'll put it that way. And it was just me, my mom, and my sister because the dad situation's complicated, and the short version is that he wasn't in the life. He was not involved at all. I mean, he was paying child support, and I think that was about it. And I think I saw him maybe twice. Like, to this day, I think I've only seen my father twice, and I don't even remember what he looks like. But that's not the point. The point is that because of that situation, and my mom dated, but the point was there wasn't really any other financial male figure in our lives. So she was constantly supporting 2 kids by herself, and it was always a struggle. And even though you're not trying to involve your children in the financial problems, when you're constantly moving, you can't really hide that from your children. So for a while, I went through a long period of time in which I used to blame myself. Because the thought process kicks off with, well, if she didn't have 2 kids, she would at least have more money to support herself and my sister, which would be way easier than supporting me, my sister, and her. And so for a while, I was pretty fucking depressed. I will probably never forget those nights where I was laying across my bed, looking out into the window that was across from me and fucking just crying. I think that's the only time in my life I've ever cried myself to sleep. And it wasn't even like, and I don't even remember anything that happened during the day that triggered it. It literally just be like, I'd just be thinking, and my thoughts would just lead me into that direction. I'm like, man, my mom would be so much happier if she only had one child, because then she wouldn't have to deal with all this extra shit. Especially, and I think part of it was because I wasn't doing incredibly well in school around that time also, so that made things worse. Depression is one of those things that'll eat at you, and like I said, a lot of it comes from you overanalyzing a situation, and even situations that aren't really your fault. I'll give you a prime example of what someone who's depressed would do. And not everyone, but at least people who have a similar type of depression like I did, this is what you'll do. Let's say your parent has to come down to your school for a parent-teacher conference. It's not like you did anything wrong. It's just a standard parent-teacher conference for obviously the parents and teachers to talk and to see how you're doing. Nothing major, right? You get out of that parent-teacher conference and you're about to get in your car and you get mugged. Through the mugging, what ends up happening is that your mother gets robbed and she gets shot in the leg. You as a depressed child, or someone in my position, would have been like, well, damn, if she didn't have to come down here because of me, then she wouldn't have got shot and gotten robbed. But the reality is that just because you were the reason why you were down there, the reality is that dude coming up to robbing you was something that you had no control over. But see, a person who's depressed isn't looking at that situation. They're not looking at the reality that, hey, that was just, I would say it's more on the individual than anything on you. But a person who's depressed will automatically blame themselves and literally spin logic to make it seem like it's truly their fault. And the problem is that's because as human beings, we focus on the negative. We always want to focus. Things that are shitty stick out in our minds way more than things that are beautiful. Like, oh, my sister just had a baby. Oh, my mother just died. Both are two big events. I bet you your mother's death is going to stick in your mind way more than your sister having a child. And not because neither one of those events are more important than the other, but negative things tend to stick with us. That's what trauma is, right? And so a person, when you're depressed, that's the kind of mindset you're stuck in. And it's the hardest thing to break out of, because not only because your mind automatically, human beings tend to think that way in general, tend to lean into the direction of focusing on the negative. Then on top of that, which feeds into the spinning of logic, which makes you want to blame yourself for anything. And then on top of that, it kills motivation. When you're depressed, you don't want to do shit. You want to fucking hide out in whatever safe zone you have and just kind of disappear from the fucking world, which makes you non-productive. So you know how people always like to tell you, it's like, well, look at this, look at what you've done here, or look what you've done there. Well, those things get harder and harder to point out because you become lethargic and you don't want to do any fucking thing. So it's like, oh, well, you have a job. My coworker just yelled at me. Oh, you have a successful YouTube channel. I haven't uploaded a video in months. Oh, but you're writing a book. I haven't made any progress on it. I've been writing it for 4 years. See what happens? Depression is a very nasty fucking trap that you can constantly get caught in, and there's like very little you can do to get out of it. I'm the kind of person who doesn't believe using pills and drugs is the best way, because all you're really doing is trading depression for addiction. Which is, and I'm not saying that always happens, but you're running the risk of it happening, especially nowadays when people prescribe you every type of drug just to get you out of there and make some money off of you not having to be prescribed to these drugs. The reality is it's hard. I don't think depression is something you ever will truly get away from. I think it's something that you just learn to live with. That's why we all have different ways of coping with shitty days. You either go out there and you smoke, or you go out there and you drink, or you go out there and you play video games. You go out there and get a hobby like sports. There are people who are gym rats because they need something to distract themselves, because they know if they go home and they're just alone by themselves for too long, their mind will wander into a very dark and disturbing place. Doesn't always fucking happen, but everybody has a different way of coping. I would at least argue that, the gym rats, or the people who have hobbies like maybe building model ships or something, or at least they're doing something productive. And that's really what you need to do to get yourself out of that kind of rut. It won't fix the problem. There is no true fix for that. There is no true way of getting rid of depression entirely. You just learn how to live with it and kind of use it as a motivator. And for some people, it works different ways. Like some people will take some type of guilt that they feel based off of their depression and use that as a motivator to do better. But another person could be in that same situation and that shit could crush them. You know, it's like because that's what people do. People will sometimes blame themselves. Some people can take that and go deep, real deep, to kind of like repay the debt, right? But some people, it's just like a fucking ton of bricks, and it will just absolutely decimate you. And I think what you really need are people beside you who are willing to walk with you. Although once again, you run the risk of dragging each other down, which is why you can't approach a person with depression in this casual manner saying, well, just get over it. It's not how depression works. You don't get over depression. You cope with depression and you move with depression. Because I feel like and that kind of gets into my other, because I mean, even I still do things that I would consider lingering effects of depression. For example, when something shitty happens to me, I have a tendency of saying I always lose or I always get cheated. Like I put myself in a very low standing. And I would argue that's probably a form of or a result of that depression, where now I kind of put myself lower on the ladder and I become insecure about shit. And it's just something you have to deal with. But the worst thing you can fucking do is just sit there and lay out, because depression usually can lead into suicide. And the reason why is because you feel like you're such a burden on everyone around you, which is why I say sometimes it's hard for your friends to approach you properly. Because if you approach someone with depression the wrong way, it can totally kickstart a fucking downward spiral and hurt everyone. You just need to, sometimes you need to give the person space, but also let them know that your hand is there if they feel like they're wandering through the darkness and they need someone to touch. They need someone to hold on to. And like I said, I don't have all the fucking answers. I don't have the best cure for this, but I feel like for me, what helped me kind of get through it was just going, and like I said, it don't work for everybody, but for me, it was always like, my mother went through all this effort. She put in all this work. I'm better than that. I can do more. And if nothing else, I want to make something out of myself. So if I need to, I can help her in the future. You know, I look at it also like, you think my mom would be happy to know her son committed suicide? No true mother, no true parent is happy because their child is so sad and depressed, which is why I say you need to talk about that shit. It's hard for an individual to sit there and go, I'm fucking sad, I hate my life, I just want to die, or I can't, I feel like I'm hurting you. Like, it's hard to just admit that, because no one, because like I said, at least my type, we're the type who overthinks everything. So we already know that our parents will say some kind words and they'll say some shit like, oh, you're not hurting us, or oh, it's okay, we're here for you and shit. And then we're keep thinking about it. We go, but in reality, we're thinking we're hurting them all the time because we make things harder for them, or we're embarrassing them, or we don't feel like we're living up to their expectations, or you feel like you can be doing more. It's hard. There is no true right answer to how to deal with this shit. But I think the key to it is to at least let somebody in. It doesn't have to be a bunch of people, but you need to let somebody there who can grab you if you start tripping. If someone can hold you. Everybody deals with this shit differently and everybody copes differently. Getting some sort of hobby and kind of diving into that hobby helps. Some people can't be left alone with their thoughts. I mean, that's what I would argue. That's what people use religion for. People use religion to cope with the same shit. Everybody handles these types of problems differently. You just got to find something that works for you. And having people around there with you can help you at least find those things. That's why people still say you need to get out more. They don't understand the reason why you're alone, because you don't feel like you're worthy to do that, or you also feel like you're just a burden. You'll be a burden on others. But getting out can also lead into opportunities. Like, you may not, I'll give you an example. I don't fucking like parties. I don't like those social drinking areas. I don't go to those. Doesn't mean I can't go out though, because going out can present an opportunity for things to get better or inspire you, or something can happen. opportunity is not something that just happens along. Opportunity is something that you're creating in a way. You're putting yourself in a position for something to happen, which could lead into you being inspired. It could also lead into something bad, but that's the mystery of life. That's kind of the enjoyment of life. That shit happens, and it could be good or bad. You just gotta learn how to roll with the punches. I know this video seemed kind of rambly, and it may not have made a lot of sense, but I hope, if nothing else, this video starts a dialogue of just a conversation of people in the comment section who may have dealt with depression in their own way, and just be like, this is what I dealt with. You know, this is what I've been struggling with. This is how I handle it. I don't know if it'll work for you, but it worked for me. And, you know, and just having a cool area where people can sit there and go, we, as other people who've gone through depression, we understand how you feel. Or someone who's been depressed knows how you feel. Because I would argue my depression was nowhere near as bad as other people's. Like, mine's was probably like the lightest, some of the lighter forms of depression. So, you know, yeah, I think that was a video. I hope this did something. Please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. If you want to support me on Patreon and get in on the gift card giveaway, it's in the description. Discord, if you want to just chat and we can talk this shit out in Discord if you want to, just for the fuck of it. In the description, Twitter in the description, everything in the description. So if you're having a bad day, you got someone to talk to. Yeah, that sounded creepy as fuck. Well, hey man, it's the day after Halloween. What do you expect? Alright, I need to shut up now. Life's a game. Play to win, and I will catch you guys later. Woo, I'm dizzy.